The Globe and Mail, which is one of Canada's largest newspapers, which reaches all spans of the Canadian nation, asked a very interesting question, or one of the newspaper's contributors asked a very interesting question and wrote a very interesting article, which is an old article, but it's from May of this year. But the reason I want to talk about it is, number one, this is the first time I'm seeing this particular article. But number two, it's this question could be answered very simply by the fact that this is the question. Let me just pull up the article and it'll make more sense to you. Let me find it here. Okay, where is it? It's on the computer here. Okay, it's right here. Okay, right here, right here. So the question is, why is Canada denying its Indigenous peoples clean water? Now, this was an article from May of 16th, 2018 by a woman named Amanda Classing, and she is a senior researcher at Human Rights Watch, specializes in the right to clean water. Now, she may or may not also be a contributor to the Globe and Mail or have some connections with them. I mean, that could be the only way she could be writing this article, or she could have paid to have this article in the newspaper, so she must be a fan and be a subscriber to the Globe and Mail. And the part of the article goes like this. It says, I have visited many countries conducting human rights research for Human Rights Watch. Canada, with its global reputation as a rights-respecting country with bountiful fresh water, was the last place I expected to encounter parents worried that their water could harm their children. While investigating Human Rights Watch, While investigating Human Rights Watch's report on the drinking water crisis in Ontario First Nations, I spoke to dozens of parents and grandparents who cannot trust their water, which can weigh heavily on the heart and mind. So, and then it continues just a little. Let me just read a little more if you let me. Unfortunately, Grassy Narrows and Susan's situation are far from unique. As the Globe and Mail detailed Monday in its excellent reporting on water safety, there are currently 158 similar drinking water advisories in 114 First Nations communities. The statistic doesn't reveal the full extent of water problems facing First Nations communities. Some lack any running drinking water, relying only on trucks and cisterns, whatever that is. And many households rely on well water, which is often contaminated. The basic human right to water is seriously at risk in First Nations communities across Canada. And they continue on by asking, why is this? Well, I can answer that question very well for the Globe and Mail and for this individual who seems to read the Globe and Mail and rely on the Globe and Mail to make their articles. Let me say, if you are concerned about the drinking water on First Nations reserves across Canada, the last place you want to turn to is the Globe and Mail, because that newspaper is one of the most globalistic and Justin Trudeau-loving newspapers out there. They hate any form of patriotic nationalism. They would be the last group of people to embrace any form of putting our nation first or things like that. And the reason I mention that is because right now we have a leader, Justin Trudeau, the Mac Daddy, the son of Satan, who has spent billions upon billions of dollars to other nations. One of the first things he did was to give billions of dollars to Indonesia to help them with their infrastructure. You have heard me talk about this over and over and over again. Not to mention, he gave $10 million to Omar Khadr, a terrorist who killed 2 soldiers, millions of dollars to Afghan veterans, and billions of dollars to Middle Eastern and African countries to help them with their food crisis. But to this day, natives on many reserves across Canada still live with contaminated water. Now, how can that be? That has to be some form of racism, or at the very least, negligence. Because most Canadians have very good drinking water. I could drink right from the tap in my kitchen and not feel any ways whatsoever. I mean, you could literally drink out the toilet if the toilet was new enough in Canada. But for some reason, natives in Canada have some of the most poisonous drinking water. And though it has been a problem for many, many years, and I condemn both the left and the right for not being as serious about this, this prime minister, this so-called man of the people, which he is anything but, has done barely anything. I mean, the amount of money that he has sent to other nations and to refugees and even illegals who break our laws could fix the water problem in native reserves 10 times over. That money could make that water so beautiful you could drink out the river. I mean, it could change, but our government is focused on other nations and other people. And the reason I mentioned the Globe and Mail is because if you had said that in the headquarters of the Globe and Mail, they'd have had security throw you out in 2 milliseconds. If you go on the Globe and Mail, every article they have is against Trump, is against nationalism, is against patriotism, things like that we talk about that could actually make us focus about our own country instead of other nations. They wouldn't like me. They wouldn't like me at all. I mean, I don't know if they endorsed Trudeau in the last election. I think they may have endorsed Harper, but that is for their own personal reasons. The fact of the matter is, the way we could solve this problem and solve it well is if we change our mindset that we need to start looking inwards and helping with inwards 100% until there are no Canadians who have poisonous water, until there are no Canadians that have to go to school without breakfast in their stomach, until there are 0 Canadians who walk the streets of various towns and communities without shoes. Until then, we have to continue to be putting our nation above all nations. And the Globe and Mail is a newspaper that would retch at saying something like that. So that's how I would answer the question. If that's the question to this problem on native reserves. The reason why Canada is allowing this is because Canada is run by a 2-timing, long-haired Mac Daddy who is the son of Satan, who really doesn't give 2 cares about his nation, but who will give billions of dollars in a second to other nations. And until we stop that, and until we have a true patriotic, nationalistic, country first, and put our people first leader, this problem isn't going to go away. That's as simple as that. This is the Arana Nation.